1, 2, is this on?
Give me your
Oof.
5-second take on the retirement.
It was great speech, great ending. It sucks because he's in the prime of his career. But do you ever get the feeling that it's a little too much?
What do you mean?
Was he? I don't know. I guess he was pretty great for the short. But I mean, there are wrestlers that have spanned or more time than he has and gotten certainly less publicity than he did with his retirement. Maybe that's just like
he burst out. How many wrestlers have gotten into the mainstream though?
That's true. That's very true. He was over in a way that not many people have gone over. I guess that makes a good point.
But his was such a short amount of time. I think that's where, like you said, he really had 6 months, and Stone Cold, The Rock, those guys had 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's what I'm trying to say is that there are people that, I think, maybe not pop culturally, but you put them on a list with, people who only held the title, 2 or 3 times, then you're talking about your Booker T's and stuff like that,
So who do you regard more? And I know you don't like this guy, but an Edge who had 10 years where he was floating either upper mid card or at the top of the card, but never broke into a mainstream, or Daniel Bryan who had 3 months in the mainstream, but such a short amount of time. Whose legacy is more impactful?
I guess you'd have to say that it would be Bryan. I only say that because, almost every news source covered this. He was on Rolling
crazy.
Stone, CNN, all these people were talking about this guy who retired. And I mean,
and they were doing it in a way that was why, the death of wrestling today, and
exactly.
These really sentimental titles.
And that's the thing is he was he in the grand scheme of things, obviously great worker, great guy, great story and all that, but it definitely was it shocked me the amount of people that were SportsCenter opened up with it. Scott Van Pelt.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Opened his SportsCenter up with it.
Holy
and I was
cow.
shocked by that. It was that.
How much do you think that is of the concussion thing too?
I don't think it has much to do with that. Honestly, I think that Yes movement. I mean, it was big with us, and I think that it was big with everybody. I think that just. I mean, as noticeable by The Rock and Stone Cold, who went through 800 different catchphrases apiece. if you can get something that the audience can chant or say with you, then you are gold. Then
that's the thing about him is he doesn't have. He probably has 1/20th of the charisma that The Rock has.
Yes.
And he basically, to be honest, he probably got really lucky. Is that he got this yes movement going thing, But you go back and even today's product, people are pretty negative and cynical toward it. But you watch that cage match where he's chanting yes on top of the cage, and the ascension ceremony. Those moments actually were as close, I think, as you can get to Attitude Era.
Yeah, I would agree with that, and it's just shocking that it was like we said, I would have been interested to see where they would have written his character, because his journey to WrestleMania when he won it in New Orleans was as good of a story as you can get.
Okay, so that's what I was actually. That's funny you bring that up, because I was thinking to myself, in a weird way, I think it's almost a good thing, because how many more years of yes chanting could a crowd do without getting burnt out? And
I hear it.
Really, how many more times can you be the underdog?
You're exactly right. That's why I think that it's that was the pinnacle of the Daniel Bryan movement, and it would have been great. And the bad thing is that and I hate to sound like the biggest nerd ever, but the saddest thing is that we're losing a good wrestler. He had great matches with
Nerd.
a lot of people. and that's what sucks the most, is that in a time when WWE desperately needs wrestlers, actual wrestlers, they lost a really, really good one.
So looking back 10 years from now, is Danny O'Brien's legacy bigger that he retired early in the way that he retired, or would it have been bigger if he was able to go for another 3, 4, or 5 years?
See, I think it's bigger now that he's retired.
This is the Michael Jackson syndrome, where
Yeah,
he
like
dies
like
almost like close to a peak, and
exactly. Like you basically you have a person who like reaches like just monumental like heights with their popularity, and then it's sort of like everybody says what if, but no, usually people don't take the cynical view and be like, well, he probably would have just burned out,
yeah.
like
I
little
mean, that's what
bit
we say
later.
about Chris Farley is either he had to go into some serious acting roles, or it's actually probably a good thing, because how many more Beverly Hills Ninjas could we watch? Even though I love that movie, but
Yeah.
you know,
I mean, I could watch it all day, every day, but to each their
how
own.
many
But
more?
yeah, I get exactly
how many more
what you're saying.
movies later would we have been burnt out on a Chris Farley?
Yeah, I mean that's the thing is like some of these people and like careers evolve and stuff happens and I don't know like what WWE creative had in mind for him, but I definitely think that it's
Well, that's the thing
it
about
was
Danny O'Brien too is I think he would be the first to admit that he's not charismatic enough to kind of survive on his own. Like, I don't think he's a very deep guy. I think he just is pretty basic. He likes to live his off the grid lifestyle, and he likes to wrestle, but he's not going to be like having these huge shifts in characters like a Jericho would in '08 when he becomes like the corporate guy, or like The Rock becoming the Hollywood guy. You know, I don't think he could pull that off.
well, yeah, because his character was sort of like the underdog, and so like that character, once you topple whatever you're fighting against, kind of like subsides. So like you basically kind of like lose your character within the battle to beat the authority or whatever you're trying to do. But like The Rock and Stone Cold are two guys that had characters that just like that like were in addition to that, like like
You would have Austin evolving into saving Stephanie from being crucified. He's otherworldly evolving.
he literally had her on a cross in the middle of the ring.
reaction to her hug, when he's got his arms in the air, doesn't know what to do. You can just tell that night he was like, "What the hell do you want me to do?"
He's like, well, I guess I'll save her, but I ain't gonna hug her. That's the worst Stone Cold impression on the face of the planet.